It is coming up here 1 minute after 9 o'clock. Kirby, it's always wonderful when one of the most powerful, prominent women in American politics today, that is Spokane Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers, takes the time to join us here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Good morning, Kathy.
Kathy, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning, John. Good morning, Kirby. Great to be with you.
So you sound like you're pretty chipper right now, pretty happy, despite the fact that it's pins and needles when it comes to the showcase, the showpiece of the domestic agenda for the president so far, and that is the partial repeal and replace of Obamacare and its fate in the U.S. Senate.
Well, it's great to be with you, and I'm just pleased to see that the Senate is moving forward with the repeal and replace of Obamacare, and this is all part of the legislative process. But I'm encouraged that they're moving forward this week with this important bill. We continue to see where Obamacare is failing all across this country. Washington State, the recent predictions in premium increases as high as 38% across the country. Health and Human Services just released a report that showed since 2013 more than double-digit or 100% increases across the country. So people continue to see their premiums go up as well as their plan choices reduced. And so we need to take action, and I'm encouraged that the Senate is doing so this week.
Now, when you see, half a dozen senators, and they can only have two that flake off and have, Mike Pence break the tie. When you have half a dozen senators publicly expressing their disagreement for now with the bill, do you, as someone who's spent a few years now in the nation's capital, do you say, well, they're just kind of striking out a bargaining position, or do you think, this bill's in big-time trouble?
I think this is part of the legislative process. For Republicans, we have, since the day the Affordable Care Act was signed into law, we have been talking about the importance of repealing Obamacare. In the House, we took over 60 votes to repeal Obamacare, and I believe that's a position that has united the Republicans, House and Senate. And those senators right now that are saying that they're not ready to move forward, they do support the repeal and the replace of Obamacare, and I'm hopeful that as they better understand, as they get the opportunity to ask their questions, that they will get to a place where they can vote in favor of this important step.
Well, that is good news. What I'm wondering is, why is it such a tough sell to allow people to buy insurance over the state line? I mean, I can buy my health insurance over state line. I can buy my car insurance, my life insurance. I can buy my life insurance and my auto insurance over state lines. I can't buy my health insurance. Why?
Well, I certainly support and believe that we should move forward the legislation to provide that opportunity for people to purchase their health insurance across state lines.
No, I know you've been a long-time supporter of that. I'm just wondering, why is it such a tough push to get it through?
Well, we will move that legislation separately. Part of the challenge in the approach that we've taken through budget reconciliation is that it's a great tool because it only requires 50 votes in the Senate to get a bill through the Senate. It also limits the provisions that we can put into that bill, and any policy provision has to impact the budget. It has to actually be a part of bringing down the deficit. It's a budget reconciliation tool, and providing for the across state lines is not a budget impact. So that is why you haven't seen it move forward yet, but it is part of phase 3.
Right.
And it is the House is going to take action on that within the next few weeks. We're taking this week. The House is passing medical liability reform, which is one of the top drivers of the cost of health care in this country. Right. And that's another piece that is very important to health care reform.
Kathy, let me ask you this. I was on a radio show with some liberals on Friday, and they started talking about the 23 million people that you were going to throw off Medicaid in order to get this passed. Well, according to what the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, says, but if you read the CBO, if you actually read it, what it says is that 23 million people would lose their health insurance, most of them voluntarily, because they would no longer be compelled to buy it because you guys do away with the mandate, and they would simply not purchase health insurance. It's not you pushing grandma over a cliff in a wheelchair. It's their choosing not to buy insurance at the time. Why is it so difficult to get that message out? Because these liberals really honestly believe that Catholic McMorris Rodgers is pushing her grandmother over a cliff and throwing these people into the street.
I know. It's been really sad to see some of the talking points that have been used by the left and by the Democrats in opposition to this bill, because they're scaring people. I've talked to a number of people in Eastern Washington that I have the honor of representing that believe that we're going to just take away Medicaid, that's not what this bill proposes to do. It is not what I would support. It's a very important safety net. And the numbers, these 23 million that CBO has cited, these are not the real numbers. You can't lose. They say the headline is 22 million will lose their health insurance.
Right.
You can't lose something that you don't have.
That's
and
right.
What they're saying is that they're projecting that states that didn't expand their Medicaid are going to go ahead and do so. Well, here's the number you need to know, is that 10 million is the number that have actually signed up under Obamacare. 10 million. So you can't lose something that you don't have.
Right. And one last quick question. Also, you talk about Medicaid cuts, but those aren't really cuts. Those are cuts in the planned increases, are they not? They're not cuts in actual spending as of today.
Right. Medicaid spending is going to go up. It's going to go up by 20% over the next 10 years. Again, these are numbers that are based upon states not expanding their Medicaid. That, some say, well, they were, if they did expand the Medicaid, this is what it would cost. But I think it's important that people know that there's a commitment to Medicaid. It is a commitment to a very important safety net for our most vulnerable. But the Medicaid expansion, when you look at who was a part of the Medicaid expansion, 80% plus were able-bodied adults.
Right.
Our goal is that they wouldn't be on Medicaid, but that they would be able to purchase health insurance in an individual market, a robust individual market, and that we would be protecting Medicaid for those that is most intended to help, and that it would be done at the state level.
Yep.
There would be the flexibility at the state level to implement and structure a program that's going to best meet those needs at higher quality at a lower cost.
Well, basically, Kathy, we reformed welfare in the mid-'90s. Medicaid is health care welfare. Don't we need to reform Medicaid for some of the same reasons we reformed welfare 20 years ago?
Yes, and get it back to the local level where we in Washington State can best structure this program to meet the needs of those that need it, but to do it in a way that's going to actually provide better services. There's really some innovative programs now that different states are pursuing, and the states need to have that flexibility. Washington State took years requesting a Medicaid waiver from the federal government.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is, okay, Washington State, you should have the ability, you shouldn't have to ask the federal government for the flexibility to structure this program the way you think is best. You should be able to do that on your own.
By the way, I wanted to give props to you because another reform bill, a VA reform bill, did pass Congress and did get bipartisan support, and you were one of the leaders making that happen.
Yes, and it was signed by the president on Friday. This is a very important aspect of reforming our Veterans Administration. I've long said that the VA has a culture problem, and this legislation will help us hold the VA accountable. What it does is it really it allows the secretary to dismiss those poor-performing employees. And we've heard too many examples where the VA can't fire anyone, and you have employees that even when they've been involved in misconduct, they get a promotion or a bonus. There's a lot of good employees at the VA, honest, hardworking, and it's unfair when you have employees like this that you cannot hold accountable.
Kathy, it's a really good first step.
It is, and thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning, Kathy.
Hang in there, Kathy. I know it's tough, but hang in there. We need you.
Good to be with you.